First of all, I want to say how much of a pleasure it has been for me to be here and participate in this meeting. I have a number of impressions. First of all, I think it's an amazing collection of regional leaders in the same place. And frankly, I don't see this very often in the world. I think that what you've been able to do today in this meeting and over the course of this meeting is bring together people to have a discussion that many places can't have. So even though Colombia is not yet a wealthy country, I think this meeting is a very good sign. And I think all of those who made this meeting happen should be congratulated. And I'm serious about that. I actually talked to the former governor briefly a little bit earlier today, and it was just exhilarating for me to hear him talk about how this process has gotten started and how there's been continuity now. So often in politics, the new governor comes in and throws out everything the past governor did. Or the new mayor comes in and throws out everything the past mayor did and starts over and has new programs. Well, that's why countries don't progress. That's why regions don't progress. Because they don't have continuity. Political leaders are not willing to build on what's good and then add their own new things to it. And again, I think in this region you are lucky to have political leaders who have taken this perspective. And so I want to congratulate them for that philosophy. I want to thank Gustavo Mutis, who is a national treasure for Colombia, and CLG as an institution for their incredibly entrepreneurial role in getting this all to happen. Luis Castro for your leadership. Rosario Cordova for being here. I've gotten to know Rosario. We have a case study at Harvard on the national system of competitiveness in Colombia, which is taught in hundreds of universities around the world. And Rosario was actually at Harvard Business School about a month ago when we discussed that case with my Harvard students. And they all came away really very excited about what's going on here in Colombia. And Catalina Crane, having a person working directly with the president, deeply focused on public-private engagement and partnership. Again, you don't see that in many countries. At least I don't see that, and I probably have been to more of them than anybody here. So again, I think there's a lot in what's going on here today and what's going on in the country that we can be proud of. And as someone who's tried to be personally involved in this process since 2005 in particular, when I myself made my first visit to Colombia, I'm very, very excited about what I see. Now, let's comment a little bit on the discussion that I heard this morning and throughout the day. The three big bets for the region, I think, are all interesting and important opportunities. And I found the commentary quite interesting and quite sophisticated. I think there's quite a good understanding of what a cluster is like and the opportunity to use kind of the cluster concept to upgrade the sophistication of an economy. All three of the presentations I thought were excellent, and I learned a lot. Let me offer a few comments. When we talk about mining and energy, let's understand that mining and energy are not a cluster. That is very broad. Really, you could see that as a cluster of clusters. They're different. Now, coal is a cluster. But then there's other kinds of mining going on in this country, and there's a variety of different energy sources that we could be talking about. So when we think about clusters, we've got to make sure that we're thinking about a sort of a connected concentration of economic activity in a particular area. Agriculture is similar. Agriculture is not a cluster. Agriculture is a cluster of clusters, potentially. Palm oil or livestock are the clusters. There's certain synergies among them. But we've got to make sure that we focus the cluster thinking not at very broad areas, but at more concrete and very connected opportunities, like, for example, in the whole palm oil area, which also then gets very connected to new kinds of renewable fuel. And so as we continue to develop this cluster concept and this cluster development agenda here, we have to kind of, again, make sure that we're not drawing too broad a brush of the economy. You know, sometimes I go to countries and they talk about the manufacturing cluster. Well, of course, there's so many different things that are all manufacturing. We have to home in on that set of related and supporting businesses that actually constitute the cluster. And so that would be one humble comment. You can tell I'm a professor. I worry a lot about how we define these concepts. Because if we don't have a clear understanding of that, we can get very confused. We can start talking about a cluster in agriculture, and then all of a sudden it's not very concrete, and everybody gets frustrated, and you can't agree on what to do in going forward. And we don't want that to happen. We have good momentum. I think a lot of the specific ideas that were suggested are excellent. We have to go seize them, but we have to make sure that we organize ourselves the right way. Get the people together that need to be together in order to get things done in a particular field. Now, the three big bets, I think, are all good areas to bet on. I would certainly validate that. I think the opportunities are, some of them are short-term, some of them are medium-term, some of them are long-term. And so therefore we would need to see them each with a somewhat different horizon. I think palm oil is here and now. We have the critical mass. We have a substantial amount of activity already. The question is how this can be scaled massively over the next decade or two. In livestock, that's here and now. But there's a tremendous opportunity to make it more sophisticated, more productive, more advanced, use better technology, build more supporting industry, upgrade the sophistication and knowledge base of the farmers and ranchers that are participating in that area. Life sciences, again, is a very broad category, perhaps too broad. Some areas there perhaps are shorter term, others will be longer term. But we need to be thinking at both levels. Those three areas are all good bets, but I want to emphasize a point that I can't stress enough. All clusters are good. All clusters are good. Just because we've focused on those three areas as interesting doesn't mean that logistics isn't important. In fact, I made a strong case in my remarks that logistics was, in a sense, a core cluster that would be supportive of many other clusters. And therefore, we had a particular need in this region to get that right. That doesn't mean we shouldn't worry about palm oil. It doesn't mean we shouldn't worry about livestock. It doesn't mean we shouldn't worry about ecotourism. We should worry about all of those. We need to create a structure and a mindset that every cluster is given an opportunity and sees the opportunity to upgrade itself. Whether that's logistics or tourism or anything else, where this region starts to have a critical mass of companies and institutions in a particular field. There are many more clusters that need to be activated in this region. And the better we can do at that, the more rapidly we are going to move to a higher standard of living and a higher level of productivity in the economy. Because we've seen it happen over and over again in other regions. Now, in order to really lock in and understand the cluster concept, maybe a couple of additional points would be useful for all of you to hear. Why do we worry about the cluster, not the company? Now, the answer is that we do worry about the company. As I said many times this morning, companies really are where wealth is created. But we worry about the cluster because we know that if we can see a set of companies as really part of the same productive environment, we get multiplier effects. We get synergies. It's very inefficient to have policy for each company. There's so many companies, and there's not enough time, and there's not enough money. But if we can organize our policies around clusters, then these policies will benefit many companies, many related businesses at the same time. If we try to have a training program that we target at individual companies, we might train a few people for each company. If we have a training program that's targeted at the cluster, we provide the human resources that will benefit dozens and dozens of companies and make it easier for them to hire the people they need. So the reason we think about clusters and not companies is we want to get impact, we want to get leverage. We want our resources and our investment and our time to benefit as many businesses as possible that can get synergies among each other. Another critical distinction is between clusters and sectors. In Colombia, I find you're still using the word sectors a lot. And every time I hear the word sectors, I cringe a little bit. Not because I, of course, wrote about clusters, but because a sector is a very different idea. It's an old idea. It's an idea that says that, we look at the agricultural sector in Colombia. It's very much of a concept of vertical integration. We have raw materials, and then we have manufacturing, and then we have distribution, and then we have the market. Clusters are a very different idea. A cluster has to do with locations. It has to do with regions. It has to do with geography. It has to do with proximity. It has to do with stimulating innovation and upgrading into more advanced segments of the market and providing more advanced supporting services. That's a very different philosophy. It's a very different mentality. So again, we've got to understand that this language, it's not the language that's important, it's the thinking that's important, it's the philosophy. And if we're in this country and this region going to move up to a higher standard of living, the only way to do that is by becoming more productive, and the only way to be more productive is to raise our standard and build these clusters and make them more sophisticated. And we heard some wonderful examples of that this morning. I thought the discussion of mining was just fascinating. I mean, we have these coal mines. And, those are natural resource dependent. We have coal, we have coal mines. But as the speaker described, then we can start a journey to build around that. And the first step of the journey is simple things, like I think you use catering as an example, or maybe providing food service to the mine. But that's just the start. Then you can move to more advanced things like maintenance, technicians that can repair equipment